And if you have a summary for me, oh, yes, you do. All right, awesome. Oh, yours is really short. Wow. Wow. Okay. It's a delicate balance. Editing. Oh, yes, thank you. It's all right. Do you know, so if this isn't always necessarily true for everyone, but I think in general it's true that if you are really, really good with words, if words come easily to you, writing just comes easily to you, then this is hard. This is a hard assignment to here, it bothers me because I can't see Matthias because Jesse's head's in the way now. I can see one of you on each side. Because the words just come so easily to you, you just sort of pour them out on the page. And so your task, your challenge always is going to be editing, clipping things out, because you write it and it's probably really good, whatever you wrote. But the brutal thing is to look at something and say, that's a really good sentence, but it doesn't belong. It doesn't add anything. I'm going to have to take it out. And that's brutal to do that to your own work. But if you're good with words, that's going to be your problem. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And see, and that's where compound sentences and complex sentences with lots of clauses become your friend. If you don't like to write, or you don't feel like you're very good with words, words don't just flow for you, then maybe this is easier because maybe this is how you approach all assignments. How can I get this done in as few words as possible so I can get it over with and do something else? The kind of writer you are and how you feel about writing might affect whether this is hard to do or easy to do for you. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and yes, I mentioned that I might be not here next week. That's not not true. I will be here. It is so okay. I'm glad he's warm and dry and eating. And it was pretty brutal. They ran into a bear on his lap in Georgia, at Camp Merrill, and they threw artillery simulators at it. What? Yeah, there are bears in Georgia, apparently. Yeah, America, Georgia. Anyway, so I will not be traveling to Georgia. He said he got really good at rappelling down cliff sides, but other than that, not much. No, they have missions. They have 2 missions. They had 2 5-day missions where they were out just sleeping outside. He said one night it was raining profusely and the hills were muddy, but they slept on the slope of a mountain. He said it was about a 45-degree slope and it was muddy. And then a branch fell on the guy next to him and he had to get medevaced out. But he was okay. They stitched him up and put him in the next day. What? Yeah. So anyway, thank you for listening to my mom stuff. But no, it's all cool. And he gets to come home for Christmas. And he was going to come home anyway, but now he can come home and not have to go back and do it again. And he's just very fine with it. And he thinks he's going to apply for airborne to learn to parachute, which he can do between now. He leaves for his station in El Paso at the end of January. So he's got time for that. And then he's got plans already for what he's going to do with the rest of his time. But yes, probably not. He could, but probably not. Yes. He is 24. He went to college. The Army, the government paid for his college. It's called ROTC. And so they pay. And so now he goes and he does this for them. But he likes the military. He always loved military history. So when I was homeschooling, and he was the youngest, he's my youngest. And when everybody else was graduated, but he was alone in high school, I would read out loud. And I would read a lot of the things that my high schoolers are reading. I would read Libby's War with Hannibal, which we're not reading. But He just liked military history, and he would have me find obscure military history books. And he's halfway through the entire Winston Churchill's history of World War II. It's like 8 volumes. I got it at a library book sale. Hardback. Anyway, he likes that sort. So it's not that I have to do this now because they sent me to college. He really is interested and he enjoys it. It's not just something he has to do, but yeah, Ranger School was pretty tough. Okay, thank you for listening. Next week, I would like you to do 3 summaries. 3 of them. You get to choose 3 books or movies you like. I do not care what you choose. I would like you to maybe give the title. You don't have to put the title in the summary, if you want to save space, but just give it a title. So if it's, Star Wars, whatever, episode 4, put that at the top so I know that one I would probably recognize. But so that in case you do something that I'm not familiar with, maybe you'll summarize something and it'll be so awesome. I'll say, I got to read that or I got to see that movie. Wait, so did you not want us to put the ending? No, you can put the ending. Spoil it for me. It's fine. Yes, Owen.
So maybe you can make like one favorite book and one favorite.
Oh yes, absolutely. Each one is separate, but I'd like you to do 3 of them. Each of them in 6 sentences or less. Not all 3 of them in 6 sentences or less. Do you hear the difference? Okay. No. Pick one and then summarize it in 6 sentences or less. Then pick another and summarize that. Then pick another and summarize that. Yes.
Can we do like the Star Wars book and summarize it like off an episode so we can kind of tell the differences? Like, so can you do one of the book of the same?
I understand. Yes. I don't see why not. Yes. That would be brutal. I do not recommend that. Doing the entire, multiple film series in 6 sentences or less. I feel like you're going to leave some stuff out that's really critical for the plot. Maybe not though. So okay. Ooh, let's see if Mrs. Ferguson can do it. Harry Potter. This is Harry Potter. The whole shebang. In books, movies, I don't know. I can't remember which what. Okay. Once there was a boy named Harry Potter who found out when he was 12, is that right? 11, 10? On his birthday, that he had magical powers. He was sent to a school called Hogwarts, where previously an evil wizard named Voldemort had been a student and had tried to take over the world, but had failed, but was still lurking. The headmaster and his magical skills and was being prepared to fight Voldemort. Harry gathered a group of loyal friends around him who were willing to fight by his side and die if necessary to save the world from the evil machinations of Voldemort. Finally, Voldemort was able to materialize and get a body, whatever, and that don't write it like that. That's wrong. And get a body and try to take over not only the wizarding world but the Muggle world as well. And a lot of people died. And then finally, Harry and his loyal friends were able to gather all of the Horcruxes into which Voldemort had put his life force. And discovered that Harry was the last one. I hope I'm not. Oh, please, am I not spoiling this for anybody? And by being willing to sacrifice his own life, he was able to bring down Voldemort. Semicolon. However, Harry revived, and they all lived happily ever after. That's pretty good. I left off a bunch. Yes, then you have to maybe describe. So anyway, that is your task. I'm going to ask you to do that this week, and just a second, okay. 14, 15. Okay, I'm going to ask you to do this. Hey, you guys, I'm going to ask you to do this same assignment next week. All right, so 3 this week and 3 next week. If you just get on a rip and you want to do 6 of them this week, do you know what I mean? You could just give them all to me.
Work on the same thing.
But see, think about it. 6 of these is 36 sentences or less. It's like what 6 divided by 4 is 20. 6 sentences a day for 6 days. You know, I mean, but you don't have to. All right. But that's gonna be your assignment. I will tell you this again next week. And some of you I told before you came in. So I do an extra class. Some of you from last year know this. The Scholé group only does 30 weeks, but I do 32. So you get an extra class in December and an extra class in April or May. And I will record it and you can watch it, but there will be an assignment. Like I will send out a email that week, the week you don't come here. But I don't see why not. I'm going to invite the high schoolers to come to my house. I don't see why I can't just invite all of you. Any of your mothers who are willing to drive out to my house that Wednesday and just have class at my house, we will do it. And if nobody wants to, if nobody can, there'll be a video, okay? And I will remind you of this next week. He's in junior high. By yourself? Oh, okay. Let's say, what? By yourself? Yeah. I'll send you a link. Okay, get your reading questions out, guys. I'm sorry, we're rambling this morning. It's my, I'm sorry, yes. I'm sorry, I forgot to. Shh. Well, okay, you know what? If semicolons separate 2 complete sentences, as long as you've legally used a semicolon, it's fine. And you know, if she's not sure about that, you can never email me. And okay, see, all right. So Ethan, some of you know Ethan Smith, and earlier this semester, he wrote a paper and he did like 4 semicolons in a row. No, it was last year. And I like, no, I don't like this. And then we were reading, this was last year, we were reading a history book. It was translated into English, you know, and they did it. There were a bunch of semicolons in a row. So I had to apologize to him and say, apparently that's okay. So apparently that's okay. But but you can't be reasonable. I think you should be reasonable. And I still don't personally like it if you use more than 1 semicolon in a sentence, even if it's legal. No, you can't just semicolon it and call it 1 sentence indefinitely. All right, get your reading questions out. Let's talk about Philip of Macedon. Did you have a question? Okay. All right. Macedonia, also known as. Why did I put this map up? This is not the map I wanted. Oh, no, it's okay. I'll just hold it. It's all right. I'm just going to use it for a minute. Okay, so are we with me? I feel like we're all very, yeah, I still have lots of sugar and, you know, pumpkin pie and rolls and stuff in my system running through my brain, and my brain isn't firing. Okay, Greece, Macedonia. Macedonia is the country just north of Greece. It still is. There is still a Macedonia. It is just north of Greece. It is not ruled by a king named Philip, as far as I know. I don't really know what their government system is. And for most of the Greek history that we've been reading about all semester, they thought the Macedonians were just kind of barbarian losers. The Greeks thought this. And well, yes. The Greeks called everyone who wasn't Greek a barbarian, but these guys were, Especially, well, not especially so. They're not Scythians. They're not merry-go-round of death barbarians. But but they didn't consider them certainly Greek. And well, no, that's not true. I don't know that they didn't consider them people, just not civilized people. But they didn't consider the Macedonians Greek. Shh, let me talk for a minute. Even though I just feel like there's a lot of muttering and it's loud. They didn't consider them Greek, even though the Macedonians kind of considered themselves to be related to the Greeks. They go, why won't you let us in? We're like you. No, you're not. Stay out. You're not like us. And during the Peloponnesian War that we just got done talking about, they kept trying to make alliances with the king of Macedonia, and he kept flip-flopping. He was very annoying. Neighbors, here, I'll just use this map. Neighbors in Thrace, neighbors up here, they would keep recruiting him to join their side against Sparta or against Athens, and he kept flip-flopping. Sort of like he couldn't make up his mind what to do, and he had to be told what to do. And they just, it gave the Greeks a lot of contempt. Oh, those Macedonians, they don't even know which side they're on. They can't pick a side and stick to it. They're completely untrustworthy. And that was sort of the attitude towards Macedonia. They needed to be friendly with them because when you're marching back and forth, you have to march through their territory. So they had a lot of dealings with them, but they just didn't think very highly of them. And then the Peloponnesian War happened, obviously, and ruined everything. Ruined Greece. And early in the chapter that I had you read, Dorothy Mills tells us, in 359 BC, Philip became king of Macedonia. He had spent 3 years in Thebes, where he had seen the transformation that had affected in the Theban army. And now you might have read that and thought, I don't know what she's talking about. That's because I had you skip the chapter in front of it about Thebes. Next time I should probably have people read that. But let me tell you the story. After the Peloponnesian War, Sparta and Athens, okay, Athens is ruined. Athens has nothing left. Sparta runs around Greece putting tyrants in charge. In Athens, they stick these 30 tyrants, this council of 30 that takes over, and they just murder anybody who's dangerous or on the other side or against them. Athens eventually throws them out, but they're called the 30. They're known in history as the 30. But Sparta did this to other places too. But Sparta was in bad shape too. A lot of people died in the Peloponnesian War. They spent a lot of money, both sides spent a lot of money on the Peloponnesian War. And remember, the Spartans, there are only a certain number of the full-blooded Spartan, the Spartiates, right? I grew up on black broth and I stole stuff when I was a kid and they took me away from my parents when I was 7, that sort of thing. And then they would recruit those slaves, the helots, to fight with them, right? There were only a few of those and they lost a lot of those full Spartan warriors. They were weak. And so weirdly, I need the map again. The city of Thebes took over. I'm going to rip that off. Thebes, right up here. Okay. Here's, I can't see upside down. Here's Athens. Sparta. No, it's fine. I know. It's okay. Thebes. Thebes had its shot as being the #1 power of Greece after it was all over. Sort of like everyone else was ruined and they were left. You might ask, well, why weren't they so ruined? I will tell you why. They went over to Persia. They were the first ones who bailed. When the king comes marching through, it's like, oh, earth and water, we're on your side. Don't kill us all. And they went over to Persia. So they didn't get ruined in the war, right? And so they took advantage of this. Everybody else was ruined, and they took over, and they had 2 amazing generals who just started throwing out Spartan strongholds in various cities. And then they actually got an army together and attacked Sparta. Sparta had no walls. You remember our soldiers are our walls. We don't need walls. And they did at this point. And the Thebans came and they didn't invade and completely sack Sparta, but they blockaded it and Sparta had to buy them off. It was bad. It was bad. It was a shock to Sparta. What? We just lost to Thebes? But then those two generals that were so great, they died. And it just left. Are you familiar with the term a power vacuum? Do you know what I mean? A vacuum is where there is nothing, right? You suck out all the air. And so a power vacuum is when there's nobody in charge. There were strong people in charge and then suddenly they're gone. And somebody just steps in to take charge. And guess who wants to step in and take charge? The king of Macedonia. He would love to do that because there's nobody in charge. Yes, Jesse.
Did they care about like the Mediterranean and the Black Sea?
Care about it in what way?
Were they superseded as well as Greece's stuff? Like,
around the sea and around their fleets? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, and I'm trying to think in history. When Alexander is finally going to attack Persia, I hope I'm not totally ruining the story for you. He's not going to go by boat. He's going to have some ships along the shore, but he's going to march his army. He's going to march just like the king of Persia did. He's going to march overland. He's not going to sail. So I don't totally know the answer to your question, but I'm thinking no, that they were not we would say a maritime force. So this is the first question I asked you. What are the goals of Philip? What are his goals? Jesse, lay them on me.
Well, his first goal, he wanted to create a standing army that would be ready to march and fight at all times.
Okay.
And his second goal was he wanted to unite all Macedonians into a group.
Okay.
And on the roof.
Yes. And then any other long-term plans? Did anybody else jot down a longer-term plan? Okay. That's fine. Anybody want to add to it? I totally agree with what you said. First of all, I need a standing army. What is a standing army? Do they ever sit down? What is a standing army? It just sounds funny. What does that mean? I'm so glad I asked. Sometimes I just assume everybody knows. And then a standing army means oh, well, then tell me. Oh, okay. Yes.
It's like when you have them in the barracks. It's whenever you have the men in the barracks, but then whenever someone comes to attack, they're just ready.
Yes. You pay people to be soldiers full time. Yes, whether you have an enemy or not. America has it. That's what we were just talking. My son is in America's standing army. We have soldiers that are just ready to fight. We can send them somewhere if we need to. Unlike Athens, because you might be saying, well, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is what Athens and Sparta did. Sparta really counts because their whole population was almost like an army. But in Athens, when there's a battle, when there's an enemy, you just sign up to fight. Everybody just goes and fights. So Socrates ends up in battle sharing a tent with Alcibiades during the Peloponnesian War because everybody takes a turn. Everybody fights. Early Rome, we're going to talk about Rome next semester. Rome did that too at the beginning. They just, we got an enemy. I'm going to set up a table in the forum. Everybody come sign up to be a soldier until the war's over, and then you can go back to your farm. Why would they sign up to be in the army? Yeah, because
not all mercenaries. You're probably gonna die.
Here, listen to me, guys. I'm not me now. I'm a Roman. I have a home. I have a little farm out in the country, and 5 children, and my old grandpa lives with me, and the enemy is going to come and kill them all. This is why I sign up, because I don't want them to burn my crops and kill my family and take all my stuff. Anyway, so back to Philip. This was a very long digression on standing army. Philip wants a standing army. I need soldiers ready all the time. I'm going to unite Macedonia into a single kingdom because it was basically nomadic tribes. This is why the Greeks did not take them seriously. Then I'm going to unite Greece. I'm going to go down, swoop down. Greece is going to come over to me. And then the last thing that Jesse didn't mention, then I'm going to take my massive army and the Greeks I recruit, and we're going to go whoop up on the king of Persia. We are taking down the king of Persia. Oh, okay. Did you insinuate that? Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to call you out by saying you. You were fine. So he went south. Huge battle. Battle of Chaeronea. And Greece loses. And Philip is now not only the king of Macedonia, but basically the king of Greece. It says, Athens was treated with great mercy. And a historian tells us, that day, Philip did not laugh at table or mix any amusements with the entertainments. He had no chaplets or perfumes. And as far as was in his power, he conquered in such a way that nobody might think of him as a conqueror. And neither did he call himself the king, but the general of Greece. To the Athenians, who had been his bitterest enemies, he sent back their prisoners without ransom and restored the bodies of those that were slain in battle for burial. And he sent Alexander his son to make peace and an alliance with them. Why do you think that he was particularly nice to Athens? Why do you think? I'm going to give it to Matthew. Because they were the great philosophers and thinkers and lovers of beauty and all that was good in the Greece that used to be before war ruined it. And he was kind to them. Do you know what? Some Roman conquerors do the same thing later. When they get to Athens, they just don't have the heart. They don't have the heart to wreck it. It's just too wonderful and too beautiful. Athens doesn't care, however. Dorothy Mills goes on to tell us, Athens, though forced to recognize his supremacy, never accepted him willingly. Well, think about it, Jesse. Okay, now we're all Athenians. I'm Athenian now. I'm a part of the greatest city in the world that ever has been, as far as I'm concerned. And we built the most beautiful buildings and statues and produced the greatest literature known to man. And I am not pleased about some half barbarian guy coming down here and telling me what to do. I'll do it because he's got a sword, but I won't be happy about it. You see the attitude? Yes. Okay, but in your analogy, the kid really is cool. That's the thing. He doesn't just think he's cool. He really is cool. But Dorothy Mills said something else that I think is really important. And I think maybe we will understand this better. She says, the struggle between Philip and the Greek states was more than a struggle between a strong state and several weak ones. It was a conflict of ideas. On the one side was Athens and the states who sided with her, the last representatives of the independent city-state who guarded their political freedom. I am Athenian or Theban or Corinthian or Spartan, and that means I make my own rules. We rule ourselves. Oh, we may have a tyrant that snatches power. We may even have two kings like Sparta, but we do it for ourselves. We don't have someone who comes in from outside and tells us what to do. Now, downside is the fact that we've all been so independent and valued our freedom so much that we could never get along with each other, and we ended up having a war that ruined the entire country. But we still loved our freedom. He says, on the other side is Philip, other side, who represented the new idea of national unity. You know, I think, did we talk about this earlier this year? Pretty sure we talked about it last year. What's the upside of having one guy as king? What's good?
Doesn't take so long to make decisions.
One guy swoops in, this is what we're going to do. Do it, do it, do it. And it gets done. All right? When you have a lot of people making the decision, it takes a long time to get anything done. But what's the downside of having one guy in charge? Let somebody else do the downside. Surely you see it. Matthias. He can be horrible. Life could be torture under him if he's bad. So it's not that the Greeks were right and Philip was wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different way to do it. We in America like to do it in a way that means we all have a voice, but we also do it in a way that things don't change very fast. We like that. Nothing, this isn't sounding very patriotic, nothing really gets done. It gets done very, very slowly. Because you've got to have a lot of people agree. If you're going to amend the Constitution or something like that, you have to have a lot of people agree. If you're going to override the president's veto, you have to have a lot of people who will agree. But we think that's a good thing because we don't want things changing and a new president coming in and just changing everything and a new one coming. We don't want that. We don't want one guy in charge. But it means we pay the price. Things move slowly, right? Or sometimes they don't move at all. So it's just a different way of doing it that's not our way. We're not used to it, but it's not a bad thing to all be unified. And Philip saw this. If we could just all get on the same side and all agree and put one person in charge, I think Philip might say something like this. You know, every body has one head, right? Has one brain. There's a brain in every cell of your body and they were all arguing with each other what to do, we would all die. We have one brain that tells our body what to do, and Phillips thinks he could be the brain, right? However, what happened to nip his dream in the bud and stop it from happening? Yes.
Okay, asking Philip to participate in the state procession to a great crime and rush back from the crime to the death.
Death stopped him, yes. He conquered Greece, but then he got killed before he could set out for Persia. And he is going to bequeath this to his son, Alexander, about whom you are going to read next week. And one of only a few people I can think of in history who gets to be called the Great. Pompey is the Great. There's a Peter the Great of Russia, Alexander the Great. Is there another? What? Is there another great? I don't remember. Athens did not go down without a fight. And that takes us to the second part that you read. Their famous speaker who said, we need to fight. But before I ask you that, let me ask you the next question. How does Dorothy Mills say that Athens had changed by the time Philip came to attack them? Because, okay, let's just do a little math. So, the Peloponnesian War ended in 401, I think, and the Battle of Chaeronea was in 338. So how many years? I bet you can do it in your head. This is good. 60? 63. Very good. 63 years. Matthew, if you turn this into 340, If you turn this into 340 and you go 340 to 400, that's 60. And then 61, 62, 63. That's how I do it. Anyway, we discuss that in your math class later. So everything is math class and everything is history class. It's all related. So 63 years. And so if you were 10 years old when the Peloponnesian War ruined your city, whatever city you were living in, it ruined all of them. Then you're 73 years old. You're, grandpa age. But it's within one lifetime. That's the important thing to remember. Within one lifetime, Philip starts threatening them. Socrates, by the way, died in 399. That's always an easy date to remember, too. So how had they changed? Dorothy Mills told us they weren't, when this kid was 10 years old, and Athens is fighting for her life, and Sparta is fighting to get rid of the terror of Athens' empire. How had they changed over this hypothetical 10-year-old's lifetime to where he's 73? What's their attitude? Specifically, who does their fighting for them now? What? Well, perhaps, but I'm literal fighting. No, a certain group of people does their fighting for them. Here, I'm going to read it because I feel like we're not going to get it. A great change had come over her, Athens, since the days of Marathon and Salamis. No longer was it the pride of the Athenians that her citizens themselves defended her. And though the young men liked to boast that their forefathers had fought at Marathon, they preferred a more pleasure-loving life than was possible in a camp. So they paid other men to go out and fight for them. There's a name for that. Do you know the fancy name for hiring people to be your army? They do it for mercenaries. They used mercenaries. Once upon a time, Socrates and Alcibiades went out there and they were camping in a tent and they were fighting. Once upon a time, the Persians land on the shore here and the Athenians march out to meet them, even though it seems like it's going to be a slaughter. Wasn't. Well, not for the Athenians anyway. But now it's like, oh, that's a lot of work. You don't eat as well when you're at the army camp. I don't like my bed. It's not very comfortable when I'm out on campaign. I'll just stay home. I'll stay home and drink some cocoa, watch Netflix, and let someone else go out there and fight for me. Now, here's the question. Okay, remember our farmer we were talking about a little bit ago that has the farm and the 5 kids and the old grandpa? Okay. Imagine him going out to fight for his home and his family. Okay, imagine him. Now, imagine someone else who's just getting paid to do it. Do you see the two guys side by side? Can you picture them in your head? This guy's defending his home and family. This guy's doing it for money. When the enemy charges at you, which one is going to run away first? Yeah. This is just money. I'm talking about my life. I'm out of here. Yeah, but I can't enjoy the money if I'm dead. So I want to get the money, but stay alive. You see, I need to stay alive to enjoy the money. Whereas the guy who's got the family, he might as well fight till he dies because he's the only defense his family has. What is going on? Yeah. Well, we hand them out later. It's very generous, but we'll hand them out later. So when Philip's plans become obvious, Athens does not have a battle-hardened ready group of citizens. We said they didn't have a standing army, but we also have talked about the fact that physical exercise, staying in shape, being ready to go out and fight was an important thing for them. They valued a good-looking body, not just because it looks nice or it's attractive, but because it functions well. Does that make sense? Fitness. Okay, they valued fitness. That's how we would say it. So they were ready. But these guys aren't ready. None of them are ready to take on Philip. But one guy in Athens, I want to ruin the question. One guy in Athens stood up and spoke up and said, we can't just let this happen. His name was Demosthenes. And the last question I asked you was Demosthenes a natural speaker? Was he a natural born speaker?
No. As a child, he studied a lot, not confident. As a child, he was the most powerful warrior to improve his speech.
Little baby Demosthenes, no, not baby, little grade school Demosthenes had a dream. And it is the dream of being a great speaker. But unfortunately, he was not a great speaker. And so he had two choices. And I love Demosthenes because he makes me feel good. And here's why. I have a lot of things I really stink at. But I feel like if I practice, there is hope. I'm not going to be number one like Demosthenes was. He was the greatest speaker of his time. But I can be better. And it just takes work and practice. So he worked and he practiced. We hear such fun stories like putting rocks in his mouth. Somebody asked me yesterday, how does rocks in your mouth help you talk? Well, I suggested people might like to try it, although please wash the rocks, and do not choke to death. Maybe do not do this without parental permission. But I think the idea is, do you know how, okay, I'm guilty of this. I feel like a lot of Americans are guilty of this. When we talk, we're just very with our tongue and our mouths. We just slur our words. We run words together. We're not very understandable sometimes. Do you kind of know what I mean? And we all do it. We all do it. We get lazy with our mouths, and we're not good speakers. Did you listen to the radio? Do people still listen to the radio? DJs, the guys who host, the guys who introduce, listen to them talk. They all talk perfectly. All the sounds are enunciated and they practice this because that's all we have. If I'm talking to you, I can kind of watch your mouth, not lip read exactly, but if you're not speaking real clearly, I can tell, from your mannerisms or from the way your mouth moves, what you're saying, what you're communicating to me. On the radio, you can't. So they're really good at it. Demosthenes, I think, was exercising, if I have something in my mouth, some of you have gum in your mouth right now, it's harder to talk. So you have to be more precise with how you move your tongue and your lips to make the words come out clearly, right? And I think that's what he was doing. He apparently, well, have any of you ever done public speaking? Like gone to a class for public speaking, or have you done? Was it a class? Was it a group that you were in, or? Oh, so it's kind of nerve-wracking, isn't it, to stand up in front of a group? Some people deal with it better than others. What did you say? Say that again. You just. If you've ever had to stand up in front of people and talk, you notice something. You're not sure what to do with yourself. Do you know, like, what? Okay, I have hands. What do I do? I don't know. And then it's hard to stand still. Like you start shifting your weight around, because you're just nervous and you don't know what to do. So apparently Demosthenes' thing was he found that he tipped his shoulders. I don't know how he found this out. I don't think there were full-length mirrors. The Romans had hand mirrors, but anyway, somehow he knew, maybe he asked a friend for advice. So he would hang a sword above the shoulder that tended to rise. So he would keep it down, and he would train himself to not be distracting. You know, if you see someone speak, I tend to fidget around a little bit, but it can be, if somebody's giving a speech, it could be very distracting to you if they keep fidgeting with their hands or moving their hair, and you start watching what they're doing instead of listening to what they're saying. He didn't want to do that. He even built a little, I don't know, hideout, man cave, shed, where he would go to practice speaking, and he would shave half his head because this is something you do to enemies. It was a shameful thing. And frankly, I don't even recommend it today, although I suppose it's not shameful. But he didn't want to go out in public after he did it till his hair grew. And so he was just stuck in his little shed practicing his speech so that he wouldn't be distracted by other things. So if you're having trouble getting your schoolwork, no, do not do that. And so through all this practice, he would go to the seashore and he would speak loudly enough to overcome the sound of the waves. If you've ever been to the ocean, it's loud. It's loud by the ocean when the waves come in. And so he would practice. They said he had sort of a weak chest. I think he just got out of breath quickly. So try this. Go running and recite at the same time. Climb hills. You all know, you've been there, climbing, and then suddenly you're with your friend, but you're not having much conversation anymore suddenly because you're both panting just a little bit. And so he practiced all these things until he turned himself into the greatest public speaker of his time. Yes. Yes, yes. So Demosthenes did this and gave his speeches while he was doing it. Anyway, he used all of this hard work and determination. And like I said, I just feel like there are moral lessons in history. I don't think history exists to have, it's not like an Aesop's fable, but this is a good one. If you want something bad enough, you can get better at it. You may not get to be number one. I'm never going to be the number one basketball player. Ever. But I could get better if I practiced. It's just not important enough to me to practice. It was important enough to him. Anything you want badly enough, you can get better at. And that's the important thing, right? We can't all be number one at whatever. And if you are number one, you won't be number one for very long because someone else will come along and snatch it from you. We can get better. Demosthenes got so good that he was number one. And he used all of his powers to say, go fight Philip. You got to go fight Philip. And they said, okay, Demosthenes, we'll go fight Philip. They fought Philip and they lost miserably. And if I were Demosthenes right now, I just spent much of my life devoting myself to becoming a great speaker. And my moment of glory was convincing my city to fight the biggest threat of our time. And they listened to me and then we lost. I would feel really bad about that. But you know what? Demosthenes doesn't. And I got to read to you what he says. He actually says a lot. Oh, what time is it? Oh, no, we're not going to read everything he says. But he says, it cannot be that you were wrong, men of Athens, when you took upon you the struggle for freedom and deliverance. No, by those who at Marathon bore the brunt of the peril, our forefathers. No, by those who at Plataea drew up their battle line, by those at Salamis, by those who off Artemisium fought the fight at sea, by the many who lie in the sepulchres where the people laid them. Brave men, all alike deemed worthy by their country of the same honor and the same obsequies. Not the successful or the victorious alone. And she acted justly. For all these have done that which it was the duty of brave men to do. But their fortune has been that which heaven assigned to each. You know what? We did the right thing. We did the right thing, said Demosthenes. Do you know, we bury heroes. We bury heroes even when they lost the battle. Look at the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. Revered. Even today, they lost. They lost. But what did they do? They didn't give up. They did the right thing. And he said, we honor those that do the right thing, not those who just win. You can win and be wrong. You can lose and be right. And he said, how would we face the generations that come after us? How would we face history? How are they going to see us if we just sat around and did nothing and let Philip just swoop in and take everything? We lost, but we fought the good fight, right? So, but Philip died. His son Alexander was 20 years old, if I recall correctly, which is frankly pretty young to inherit an entire country and Greece and decide that you're going to go take out the biggest superpower of the world. But that's how you get the great after your name, I guess. So I want you to read about that next week. It is the rest of, what week are we? Week 14. It is the rest of chapter 18. So finish chapter 18 in the Dorothy Mills book. So we're going to read that, and you're also going to do your 3 summaries, right? And then let's spend the rest of our time with our Socrates book. But I have a poem about Demosthenes. I'm going to remember it this time. This is a good one. He had an awful stutter. He'd just mumble, halt, and mutter whenever he was called upon to speak. People laughed at him and teased him till humiliation seized him. Yes, Demosthenes was one unhappy Greek. So he practiced public speaking. He tried yelling, howling, shrieking. He tried talking when his mouth was full of stones. He would shout while he was running, and his progress was quite stunning. Yes, Demosthenes had come into his own. He alerted Greece of danger that was coming from a stranger, a warning, and he had to pass it on. With a voice quite clear and steady, he told people to be ready for invasion by the king of Macedon. He no longer had a stutter or a mumble or a mutter. People listened now when he got up to speak. He came through when he was needed, and his warning words were heeded. Yes, Demosthenes was one heroic Greek. I like that one. That's a good one. That was a good one. Okay. Did you guys bring your book along with you?
Yes.
Some yes, some no. Here's what I would like to do. Since this is a dialogue, it's 2 people talking, who would like to read? Okay, yes, we can pass books around. So raise your hand if you are willing, you would like to read. Let's see how many. We have 1, 2, 3. Matthias, you're on the fence, aren't you? No? Anybody else? Oh, MK. So we have 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? This is exactly what happened yesterday. I had 4 people who were. You are not going to be forced to read. So if you're not raising your hand, just chill. All right? Nobody's going to be made to read. You, Dalton, you'll do it? Okay. Okay. Then let's start. Let's start with Rhett and Owen. Well, no, we're going to work our way around, okay? You need to decide who's going to be Socrates and who's going to be Herod. Although Socrates talks more. Oh, shades of my father. My dad used to. Dad? Oh, no. Okay, I want you to start on page 17. Both of you turn to page 17, and I'm just going to abruptly yell stop when I want you to, which is just very rude, but I don't know how else to do it, so just going to say stop. I would like whoever's, let me decide where I want to, okay, top of page 17, I want Socrates to start, and start with the word, where there's a kind of a paragraph there that says Socrates, and start with, that is my first question. Okay, do you see, it says, I do not know that yet. You see, start with the words, that is my first question. Okay, so take it away. And talk loud, because it's echoey in here. Okay. After you see.
That is my first question. What is the question? I think it would take a knowledge more than
Do you need to take it out and hold it in your hand while you read?
But it does not take more than human reason to
All right.
Your opponents claim that abortion is murder, and you claim that it is not.
That is a clear and simple way to state our difference. Yes.
Then how would you define murder?
The onus of proof is on them, remember? They are the ones who introduced that terrible term. Why don't you cross-examine them?
When I find one of them, I shall certainly do so. But now we are alone, you and I. What do you mean by murder?
I suppose killing an innocent human being.
And do your opponents use the term in the same sense?
They seem to call any killing murder.
Do they call hunting animals for murder?
No, of course not.
Why not?
It is not killing human beings, of course.
Do they call it defensive warfare murder?
No, they're usually hawks, not doves.
What Aryan philosophers do you have? And do they call murder? And do they call it murder if the state
Executes.
the traitor for murder?
No, they're not usually into capital punishment.
Why not?
I guess because it's not killing an innocent human being.
Which was your definition of murder?
Well, yes.
So you agree on the definition of the term at any rate.
I suppose we do, but we do not agree that abortion should be called murder.
Now then, let us see whether or not it fits your definition of murder. There are three parts to the definition. First is abortion. First, is abortion a case of killing?
Terminating a pregnancy.
Is the fetus killed?
I do not like that original term.
Your likes and dislikes are they?
Are they not?
That was yours. Oh, never mind, sorry. Your likes and dislikes are emotions, are they not?
Of course.
Then it is you who are treating the term emotion rather than emotion.
Only because they started it.
You sound rather like a child who's using fighting and start with your action. But you should continue it. Is there not a better way to be not appeal to reasons?
Certainly.
Now, rationally, what does killing mean?
I suppose it means forcibly putting a live organism to death.
And is abortion's object a life organism?
Of course.
And is the term of process its death?
Yes.
Is the death forcible?
Yes.
And is killing?
Yes. But not murder.
That is yet to be decided. Now, what definition of murder did we agree?
Don't you remember?
My memory sometimes is tricks on me. Yes.
What is your
You would not really put it.
No, I suspect I wouldn't. I also suspect that you are not really as forgetful as you pretend.
It is a consequence, but I trust your memory is in good health at any time, so please tell me, to what definition of murder did we agree?
We agreed that murder is killing an innocent human being.
Fine. Now let us see whether abortion comes under your definition as you claim first, we have agreed that abortion is killing, have we not?
Yes.
Second, that is guilty of any crime of history.
Not guilty, of course, but you can't call it innocent either unless it is a person. Cells aren't either guilty or innocent.
But if it's a person, but if it is a person, but if it is a person, it would be innocent.
Yes.
If it is a human being, abortion will have to be called murder, or if it's all three parts.
Okay, we're going to stop. So the first thing that Socrates does, right, is defines his terms, which is always the first thing we have to do when we have a discussion with someone. You know, I am notorious in my family for abusing the terms this and next. So I live in my own little world where I say this Friday or next Friday, and it has a meaning to me that apparently is not shared by the rest of my family. So like the Friday that's going to happen 2 days from now is this Friday to me, and next Friday. But yeah, that seems straightforward enough, Matthew, except for the fact that my this and next morph sometime over the weekend in an indescribable way, where sometimes, like on a Saturday, I might say this Friday or next Friday, or my husband might think I mean this Friday being the Friday closest in proximity, which would be the day before the Saturday. Anyway, the point being, not my problems, but the fact that whenever I use the term this or next, my husband immediately asks me to define my terms, right? Do you mean the 8th or the 12th? You know, like what date are we talking about? What is the date that we are talking about? Because he's been burned by my this and next. And so just like me with my problem, Socrates says, okay, if people are going to say abortion is murder, and you're saying abortion is not murder, first of all, we decide what murder is. We're just going to have to decide what murder is. And they decide it has 3 parts, right? Killing an innocent human being. And do they agree on the killing? Does something die?
Yes.
Yes. Do they agree on the innocent? Is it guilty of anything? No. What can they not agree on? The human being part. Yes, Matthew. Here, can you say it again, but say it louder? Yes. Yes. This is the thing. And if you notice, this is much of dialogue 1. This is pretty much the whole point. We cannot agree on whether we know it dies and we know it didn't do anything wrong. We just don't know if it's a human being or not. Yes, Rhett. Yes. Okay, hold on to that because I'm going to have, who are my next 2 people who are willing to read? All right, Jesse and Matthew, each of you get a book. Borrow a book if you don't have one. And be sure to speak up loudly because this crazy room is very... Okay, just a second. I am deciding. I think we are going to start... Just a second. I'm deciding. I have more flags, do you see, than we possibly have time for. So okay. 23. Page 23. I would like to start at the top of page 23. And I would like Socrates. It starts with Herod, but I want Socrates, the second thing. I want you to start there. And he's going to use the term the crux of the argument. And this is a good... everything is related to Latin. Okay, crux means cross. So we get crucify from this word, but we also get crucial. If something is crucial, it's the most important moment. It's like the crossroads. Do you know what I mean? Like you're at the cross and you're going to pick a direction, and it's going to make the rest of your life or your argument. It's going to determine how it is. So they say once it's crucial, and then he says we've reached the crux of the argument. And I just wanted to mention that. Okay, whoever is being Socrates, start with you realize. Go for it. Talk loud. Be Demosthenes.
You mean what the fetus is? I don't think the abstract metaphysical status of the fetus is the crux of the argument. If I think we're being led by the nose here. Abstract arguments can prove anything.
Good arguments or bad?
Bad ones, of course.
And what is a bad argument? Is it not one which either uses its terms in an ambiguous way, or begins with a false premise, or fails to demonstrate that a conclusion necessarily follows its premises?
Right. Those are the 3 checkpoints of an argument. I took logic 2.
Okay, so you're not done. Don't worry. I was like, they got to read forever. And no, you're not done. I just want to interrupt you for a moment. So hold your place. But notice, so a lot of you have probably taken a logic class or done a logic book. And so this is the 3 checkpoints of logic, as he calls. First of all, you have to use your terms not in an ambiguous way. So in other words, when I say this and next, it always needs to be the same, this and next, or I'm being ambiguous. If I use the same word, but I don't mean the same thing by it that you mean, or I don't mean the same thing by it every time I use it, that's not fair. I'm not playing by the rules. That's not fair. Yes, Matthew. Oh, okay. Jesse, did you have a comment? Okay. More, yeah. Ambi means both, so it can mean on both sides. Okay. So the second thing he says, it begins with a false premise. This is the second problem when we reason. And syllogism. Do you know what I mean by syllogism? Have you done? Okay. So some of you do, some of you don't. Here's the idea. Here's a syllogism is two statements and a conclusion from them. Here's a famous one. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. I have two premises. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. And I can logically combine those two statements to come up with the fact that Socrates must be mortal. All right? If one of those things is false, all men are mortal, Socrates is a panther, they're mortal too. Socrates is a god. Therefore, Socrates is not mortal. Now, I have actually reasoned well, but my premise is false. Socrates is not a god. Do you see? I can't say something that's not true and then reason from it. And then his third thing was that the conclusion follows from the premises. Here's another one. All dogs are mortal. Socrates is mortal. Therefore, Socrates is a dog. It's not correct. That is not. Okay, both of my premises were true. All dogs are mortal and Socrates is mortal. They're both true, but I didn't use the rules of reasoning to combine them properly, and I came up with Socrates being a dog, which is just so not true. I can make any of those mistakes. I can make all of those mistakes. And Socrates is trying to get Herod not to make any of those mistakes. And he says, look, our argument is sound. If murder is killing an innocent human being, and if an unborn baby, which, by the way, fetus is simply the Latin word for an unborn baby. It sounds very cold and clinical. They're just using Latin for unborn baby. If the fetus dies and is innocent and is a human being, then by all the rules of logic, it has to be murder, because that was our definition. All right, thank you for that. I just wanted to point that out because it was a great outline of what is logic. Using your terms right, arguing from premises that are true, and then combining them properly in a logical way. Okay, you guys may take up where you left off, wherever it was.
I don't think so. We were painstaking because.
Let us take a second check for a minute and ask about the term. Is the argument logically necessary to make a conclusion follow? If one were to grant the premises, first, that killing innocent human beings on earth, and second, that abortion is killing an innocent human being, does it not necessarily follow that abortion is murder?
Yes, what?
But you deny the premise.
That abortion is killing an innocent human being? Yes. The argument does not pass the second checkpoint.
But abortion is killing, and the fetus is innocent, or not guilty and conceived.
Yes, but not a human being.
So you are facing up the so-called abstract metaphysical question of the fetus.
Oh.
Why are you reluctant to do so?
Because I'm a physician, not a metaphysician.
I'm
Metaphysician.
saying you differ with the doctor. Not everyone is a physician.
Here,
Everyone is a metaphysician.
I want to just throw in to make sure we all know what we're talking about. So we all know what physics is, right? The study of the world, like we're rolling balls down inclined planes and we're timing them, and and fun stuff like that. But metaphysics is the questions that we ask about what is a ball? What is an inclined plane? What is this concept? And how do they matter to the world? And so these are the questions that ask, who am I? Why am I here? Why does the world exist? What is there an invisible realm, or is everything material? Questions like that. And so Socrates is saying to Herod says, I'm a physician. The doctor, he says, no, you're a metaphysician. And his argument is that everybody asks those questions, whether you know it or not. Okay, continue. Now, I know, I'm sorry to do that to you.
In that case, you are a metaphysician. You know what you are.
I think we need to define our terms.
Those words are music to my ears.
Somehow I thought you'd say something like that. All right, so what is metaphysics? Oh, metaphysical music.
Simply thinking about what something is.
And why does everyone think about being? I haven't seen much news about it in the papers lately.
Suppose you were accused of murder and eating fish. How would you defend yourself?
Are you joking or answering my question?
I'm answering your question. You're answering mine. My answer is yours.
But your question is silly, Socrates. No one would accuse me of murder for eating a fish.
And why not?
Why? Because it isn't murder to eat a fish, of course.
See, you're doing metaphysics. You're thinking about is this. Watch now. You'll do some more metaphysics.
Not if I can.
I point you back to you. Now tell me, please, why is it not murder to eat a fish?
Another silly question.
And why is it murder to eat a human being? Why is human blood murder?
Nothing but silly questions.
And the fish you ate, would you not get people?
Socrates is ridiculous.
Why? Pray tell.
Why? Because everyone knows the fish is human.
You see, everyone is a metaphysician.
All right, so everyone is a metaphysician. Someone.
To be a metaphysician, that is, to know something of what is not.
Yes.
Now, one more thing. When we know what it is, does our knowing mean what is? When we know that a fish is a fish and isn't a human, is it our knowledge that makes the fish a fish?
Of course not, unless science is only a fantasy.
Good. Now, some who are not to know what a fish is, will that change the fish itself?
No, but it would change what the fish was to think. If I thought a fish were human, I would agree with that.
But if you did that, if you talked to it and brought it out of the water, it would talk back to you along the lines.
Of course not.
So ignorance does not alter the nature of things any more than knowledge.
Of course not.
Fine. Now let's consider the case of a slave. Is a slave a human being?
Of course not. A human being, of course.
Does everyone know that?
I don't think so. I think there were some people in the past who really thought slaves were one of a subhuman species. In fact, didn't some people even in your enlightened actions think that?
To my shame, I admit it was so. The ignorance of these people did not change the real nature of the slaves, did it?
Of course not.
And now let us talk about the thieves.
Oh, but that's a matter of opinion, Socrates, not a clear fact, like a slave or a fish.
Do not agree that you are not a murderer if you ate a fish, only because a fish is not a human being, whether anyone thinks so or not.
Yes.
And that you would be a murderer if you took an innocent slave and the slave is a human being, whether anyone thinks so or not.
Yes.
So even though some think it is human and some do not, and if it is human, one who kills it is a murderer. Does that necessarily fall whether a person is murdered is or not? It really depends on whether the fetus is a human being.
No, it depends on whether we call it a human being. If we call a person, abortion is murder. If we call it a group of cells, abortion is an operation.
Whether we call abortion murder depends on whether we call the fetus a person. But whether the abortion is murder depends on whether the fetus is a person.
Okay, we're going to stop there. This is super important. What a thing is does not depend on what you call it. You can call it, I can call that table a square. And we're laughing. What is that noise? Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's okay. We're all going to be Demosthenes today and enunciate. We're laughing. You know, he's calling Owen Jesse, and I'm calling the table a square. But and it's funny, but we are living in a world of people that are doing this. You guys are old enough, you know what's going on, pretty sure at your age. First of all, we live in a world where it just, two people can just be married. No. A man and a woman can be married. You can call other arrangements whatever you like, and you can call it that all day long. It doesn't change what it is according to logic, right? I'm just going to be very blunt here. You can call a man a woman, and you are not going to change who that person is. It's not even, it's just logic and common sense. You can't change what a thing is by calling it something else. The world doesn't work that way, or we'd all be, rich and famous because we'd call ourselves rich and famous. I'm beautiful, rich, and famous. There, boom, done. No, it doesn't change what a thing is. This is so important. This book is actually a fairly old book. It's not written, all the stuff that I'm mentioning has come up since 1983. That probably sounds like a long time ago to you. It does not. I was in high school in 1983. But okay, so this is the next point. They're arguing over something that Herod thinks is only opinion. But it's what things are. We call it their essence, okay? What a thing actually is. That is a circle, right? What it is doesn't change depending on what I like to call it. We also, this is very politically incorrect, but calling, no, I'm not going to say that. Okay, that could be taken bad. All right. I do not know. Do you know on what grounds?
Like, I don't know, maybe controversy or something. They'll be like, oh, abortion is okay.
Possibly, but the interesting thing about this book, and some Christians don't like this book because of it, but I love it because of it, because this is Socrates talking. He's not a Christian. These are Christian arguments because logic belongs to Christians because God is truth. But he doesn't use the Bible. He doesn't use theology to prove his point. It's just logic. Okay, who are my next two readers? Whoever. No, you already did one. Okay. And then I haven't forgotten you two. So give. Also, so whoever's reading next, decide Socrates here. Also, MK, if you get shorted a little bit, we're going to do this again next week. So you get to start. I think we'll have time for you to do some, but if it's not as long, then next week when we read out loud, you can be the first one and have a longer stint. Do you see what I mean? Don't leave feeling like everybody else got to read longer than me. You could feel that way. Okay. All right. Let's go to, I got to make a decision here. Okay. Page 34. Actually, hold on. Let me go to my next thing and check it out. Okay, actually, we're going to go to page 38. I just want to throw in something that happens on page 34 and 35. They're trying to decide what a human being is, right? Most of the rest of this dialogue. And one thing that they say, well, how would you define a human being? And Herod says, I don't know, because troubled man for millennia, we don't know. And what's the difference between a human being and a computer? Is AI possible. And Socrates says, well, don't you know? And Herod says, well, tell me if you know, I want to know. Socrates says, well, there it is right there. You want to know. You ask questions that aren't programmed into you like a computer is. And so they come to the conclusion that human beings are human beings because they're rational. This is actually an old Greek philosophical definition. Human beings are rational. Although Plato, I have to tell the story really quick. Plato's academy that he started had defined man at once upon a time as a featherless biped. You walk on 2 feet, but you don't have feathers like birds who also walk on 2 feet. And so Diogenes, he was the crank philosopher who lived in a tub. I mentioned him. He was sprawling on the stairs in that painting. Anyway, apparently, supposedly, he plucked a chicken and brought it into the academy and said, behold, a man, because it was a featherless biped. This is a source of many funny memes on Facebook now. Okay, yes.
Do you want us to do the second dialogue this week?
Yes. If I don't read dialogue 2 for this next week. Okay. So you gentlemen, start on page 38. Shh. All right. Do we know who's who? And start with, okay. Partway down, Herod says yes. He just says the word yes. And then Socrates says, then the fact. Start with then the fact. Okay, go for it.
Then the fact that the fetus does not yet function as a person does not prove that it is not a person.
No, but it doesn't prove that it is either.
What is it then? Is it fish?
It's a potential human being. If we say the fetus is a person only because it will grow into one, we can use actual with potential.
A useful distinction, doctor. One of the great conceptual tools of my intellectual grandson is Aristotle, but a potential egg must be an actual watch. If the fetus is not an actual person, what is it exactly? What is it actually?
I don't know.
And yet you kill it.
Wait a minute. Are you saying a fetus is a person just because it is a potential person?
No.
I should hope not, because if so, then a single.
Spermatozoon.
Yeah. Or a single ovum is also a person. Super necessary, that's kind of outside. In fact, even if a model
Primordial slime.
that Earth developed into us within 10 million years or so, it is a potential person, and the slime killing becomes fruit.
Yes, our father's love. I found it a fascinating experience to design library between thoughts. Our real man's songs. We found ourselves to be masters of the gods above, and our foolishness rather than legitimate children of the slime below. We knew so very little about the true gods of things.
What did you know about?
Oh, only simple childish things about Rome, like the birth and death. And reason and purpose.
Okay, can we skip up, you two? Can we turn the page? Just skip partly and start on page 40. And where Socrates, by where it says 2 reasons for the concern, Socrates says, I have at least 2 reasons. Start there.
I have at least 2 reasons for wanting to know what the fetus is. You have just reminded me one of them in reminding me that I ought to think about the mother too.
What's that?
Just as the mother is, and I ought to think about her because she is, so the fetus also is. And I ought to think about it for the very same reason. Would it be honest of either of us to ignore what is?
Well, no.
And my second reason is that the fetus is the victim.
Unless you use such language.
If it is appropriate to what is, yes, let us try to find out whether it is appropriate or not. Would you say a victim is and not the one who is harmed?
Yes.
And is not the fetus harmed by killing it?
Mother is servants.
Is the fetus servants?
Fetus, mother to the fetus.
No, doctor, you keep turning away from the fetus to the mother. You're discussing the fetus if you remember.
Socrates, look at it this way. Here is why it is reasonable to consider the mother rather than the fetus. Suppose I are in the business of fumigating trees with a powerful pesticide. I will be servicing the trees by eliminating the unwanted life form, the fungus. Wouldn't it be silly to think only of the fungus and not the trees, or to think as much about the fungus as about the trees? Our primary concern should be with the most valuable life forms, in one case the trees, and in another case the fungus.
But you beg the question with your animalology. The
Analogy.
analogy over only of the fetuses to the mother, but the funguses to the trees, are less valuable life forms of pets to be eliminated. But is that not precisely what is in question? Whether the fetus is a human person like the mother or a lesser life form, we must go back to the question: what is the fetus? Will you continue to follow the argument as you promised in the scientific terms as you referred to? Good. I'd like to do scientific elaborate that each person is has a single unique genetic code, just as everyone has a unique set of fingerprints. Is that correct?
Oh, Socrates, that argument over.
What argument? I'm only gathering data, not arguing yet.
All right, one day at a time.
Precisely. Now that genetic code is every unique feature and potentiality, is it not? A program ready for the computer, so to speak. Everything from eye color and brain size to a tendency to work.
Right.
And every person has his or her unique genetic code in every cell of the body, correct? This complete genetic code for a person is found in the primordial slime,
Of course not.
in a fish,
No,
in an egg.
no.
You see what we are doing, approaching the fetus. Before we arrive, let us approach from the opposite direction, so to speak. Is this genetic code complete? You may know.
Yes.
Is it in me when I speak?
Yes.
Was it in me when I was a year old?
Yes.
A minute old?
Yes.
1 minute before I was born?
Yes, it is presented from the conception.
So the fetus has it all during the time between conception and birth.
Yes, but that does not prove what you want to prove. Socrates, that a beast person.
I want only to follow the argument of whether the prayer had a beast. So we agree about that. I thought we agreed about that.
We did, but the argument has not proved that the fetus is person.
Okay, let's stop there. I'm going to give you guys one more short section. One argument here is that every human being has a distinct genetic code, right? And when do you have it? From conception. We don't have it 1 minute at a different code 1 minute after birth. Okay, just a second. What did you want to say, Jesse? Or were you just volunteering again? Just a second. I wanna, there's a particular, it's the part that,
So you can go back around in the circle and
well, just a second. I felt like they didn't get as long, and we've only got like 3 more minutes left. So just a second. I wanted to find, hang on. Oh, boy. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, let's skip to page 70. You too. There's still reading. We're just going to read just a couple more minutes. Page 70. I want Herod, middle of the page. Herod to start with frankly.
Maybe start there.
Yeah.
Frankly, I thought I was sent a kindred soul. You too are a doctor of disease, appointed to know that you do not. Are you not?
Yes, I try to treat the disease wherever I find it. The only question here is, where do you find it?
Oh, I know where to find that disease. All right, my opponents are holding it.
You know where to find that disease, do you?
I think you are tripping me up when quite clear that they claim to know more than I do. They say that they know the fetus is first, I do not. So they are fools for claiming to know, and I am wise for not claiming to know. Is that not clear?
That remains to be seen. Shall we look?
What is there to look at?
Your claim to be wise and knowing what you do not know.
What remains to be seen in that claim?
Let's see. You do not know whether the fetus is a person, correct?
Correct.
And your work here is to kill fetuses, correct?
Socrates, I am continually shocked by the line that you choose to use. I have worked on more than pregnancies.
By killing fetuses or by something else.
By killing fetuses.
Not knowing whether they are persons or not.
Oh, well.
You said a moment ago that you did not know whether a fetus became a person. Do you now?
No.
Then you kill fetuses not knowing whether they are persons or not.
If you must put it that way.
Okay, stop. We skipped the part that Rhett talked about that was so funny, where he said, is this cement block a part of this wall? Yes. And is this wall a part of this building? Yes. And so the cement block is part of the building? Yes. Okay, so the fetus is a part of the mother? Yes. How many arms does the mother have? 4 would be the answer. 4 eyes, 4 feet, 20 toes, if it's just a part of the mother, which was hilarious. But this end part that I just had MK and Dalton read, this is shocking because Herod has been brought to the point of admitting, I don't know. I don't know if this is a human being, but I kill it anyway. That's almost worse. That's almost worse than knowingly doing it. Yeah, I don't know, but I kill it. All right, I want you to read dialogue 2. In dialogue 2, you're going to meet another character, and just like Rex Herod was a joke, sick joke, I guess, because King Herod was responsible for the slaughter of the innocents. You're going to meet a doctor, because he says at the end he's got a professor of ethics, all right, and he's going to come speak on abortion, and maybe he could talk to him. Yes, and this is his name.
This upcoming semester, do you think it would be a good idea that we have questions for the other book that we're supposed to do?
Yeah, but I am not going to write them. Although I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion for that. Ask me this question again, and I will tell you my suggestion. Okay, this is the doctor he's going to talk to, Dr. Utilitarian. And Attila makes you think of Attila the Hun, somebody bad. But this is actually also a joke on the word utilitarian. Utilitarian means I do it because it is useful. I don't do it because it's right, and I don't not do it because it's wrong. I only care about what's useful. Does it work? That's utilitarianism. And so his name clues us in that his attitude is going to be, we need to ask what is useful and helpful to people, not what is right or wrong. Right? That's why his name is Dr. Utilitarian. Yes. Yes. Very good. Surprising number of Marvel connections. I don't know. Okay, so you guys may go. Would someone who's tall please take those clips down for me?